In 259 BCE, the concept of China as we know it didn't exist. There was no singular Chinese identity, no empire, and no central authority or emperor. Instead, the land was divided into multiple warring states, all vying for dominance in the region surrounding the Yellow River. This was the world into which Yingzheng was born, a time and place marked by relentless conflict. Yet this young ruler would grow to fulfill a vision few thought possible: the unification of these fractured states into a single realm. How did this once obscure figure rise to such historical prominence, becoming the man who would forge the first Chinese empire? Yingzheng's ambition and strategy would propel him to unify these rival territories, laying the foundation for the empire that would become China. The era now called the Warring States period was marked by intense and prolonged military struggles, with rival states locked in a fierce contest for dominance over more than 2 centuries. This period of conflict came to a close when Qin, the victorious state, succeeded in conquering 6 competing states, uniting them under one centralized rule and establishing the Qin Dynasty. This dynasty is the source of the term China used in the Western world today. Yet before Yingzheng rose to the status of China's first emperor, he was simply a prince from a harsh, distant region on the western edge of these warring states. Qin, his home state, was often seen as uncultured by its eastern neighbors, geographically isolated and engaged in frequent clashes with the nomadic tribes beyond its borders. In fact, a prince from the neighboring state of Wei once dismissed Qin as a rough and crude place that knows nothing about virtuous conduct. So, how did this young prince from a land considered by others to be unsophisticated and remote become the founder of the Chinese Empire? To understand that, we need to look back roughly a century to the core of Qin's guiding philosophy. To grasp what set the state of Qin apart from its rivals, it's essential to understand the underlying ideology that drove Qin's culture and ultimate success. The first emperor's achievement in unifying the warring states appears rooted in legalism, the core of Qin's political and social structure which propelled its military dominance. When Yingzheng took the throne in 246 BCE, Qin had already molded itself into a state of unyielding authoritarianism, prizing military success above all else. This transformation was largely the work of Yang, whose reforms prioritized pragmatic control over Confucian ideals like righteousness and propriety. For Yang, the sole value was the consolidation of state power by any means necessary. Under his influence, Qin took on a structure akin to a militarized state, resembling a Chinese Sparta. Freed from the focus on arts and refined culture that preoccupied other states, Qin's priorities centered on wealth, agricultural productivity, and military might. It adopted a new aristocracy based on merit, rewarding officials for battlefield achievements rather than inherited status. Ordinary citizens, too, were drawn into this rigorously organized society, with men required to serve in the army, and even women expected to defend their towns if needed. Qin's legalist system enforced state control with a strict set of rewards and punishments. Yang championed a governing style that demanded obedience through a mix of incentives and intense penalties. His laws were severe. Punishments were brutal, as illustrated by Han Fei, who noted that any failure to report a crime could result in being cut in half. This intense discipline cultivated a sense of lawfulness among Qin's people, not to mention increased agricultural yields and robust tax revenue. With a tightly regulated society and economic stability, Qin's military strength grew, creating a formidable force that outpaced its rivals. Marquis Wu of Wei summed it up aptly. Qin's nature is strong, its government is harsh, its rewards and punishments are decisive, its people do not yield. The other states, however, were yet to fully understand Qin's strength, or the ambition that would soon unify them all. Becoming Qin Shi Huang, the unification of China. In 230 BCE, Ying Zheng ascended the throne, unleashing Qin's military strength on the remaining rival states over the following decade. With relentless campaigns led by his chancellor Li Si and General Meng Tian, he pushed forward, bringing each warring state under Qin's rule. Like a silkworm devouring a mulberry leaf, the Qin forces absorbed Han, Zhao, Wei, Yan, Chu, and Qi, uniting the territories and peoples under a single empire that would mark the rise of the Qin Dynasty. By 221 BCE, Ying Zheng's conquests spanned from the eastern coast of China to Lintao in the west and stretched from the Yalu River in the north to the Lang Mountains in the south, even extending into present-day Vietnam. China, in its first unified form, had emerged, and with it, its first emperor. Ying Zheng took on a new title to match his unprecedented achievement, Qin Shi Huang. He crafted this name to connect his legacy with the mythic sovereigns of China's ancient past. Huang and Di echoed the names of these legendary rulers, and Shi, meaning the first, symbolized the founding of his dynasty and empire. The name Qin honored his homeland, the state he had transformed into an empire, while Huangdi signified his supremacy. This title reflected his ambition for an eternal dynasty, one that would, in his dreams, last forever. The newly proclaimed Emperor of China had managed to end over a century of fierce military conflict. However, his journey was far from complete. Consolidating a cohesive nation from a diverse and previously hostile set of states would require immense effort. Qin Shi Huangdi's task was just beginning as he sought to transform these territories into a unified nation. This transformation involved sweeping legal, structural, and cultural changes, including the introduction of a common currency, standardized units of measurement, and a unified script. To control his vast lands and streamline communication, Qin Shi Huangdi undertook a massive infrastructure project to build a network of roads throughout the empire. In 220 BCE, he initiated the construction of the first segment, known as the Qidao, extending east from the capital at Qianyang. Another segment, the Jidao, focused westward, reinforcing the empire's borders against the nomadic Xiongnu tribe. These roads not only facilitated trade and communication, but also enabled the swift movement of troops to secure borders and quell any unrest. In 215 BCE, Qin Shi Huangdi mobilized an army of 300,000 soldiers to drive the Xiongnu out of the pastures south of the Yellow River and used this campaign to fortify the northern border, beginning construction on the now iconic Great Wall of China. Qin Shi Huangdi's reforms extended beyond physical infrastructure to a tightly controlled legal framework designed to unify the people and enforce order. These regulations encompassed nearly every aspect of life, covering everything from the upkeep of government properties to the use of carriage lubricants. Deviation from these strict rules often resulted in harsh punishments, embodying the uncompromising legalist approach that characterized the emperor's rule. Among his most controversial measures, Qin Shi Huangdi enacted a brutal policy to control thought. Acting on the advice of his chancellor Li Si, he ordered the burning of any books deemed irrelevant to the state's needs, sparing only a few texts on agriculture and medicine. This widespread book burning aimed to curb intellectual dissent and prevent challenges to the legalist ideology that underpinned his rule. Predictably, scholars voiced their opposition, criticizing the central government and calling for an end to this cultural suppression. The government soon criminalized any criticism, and those who defied this ban faced severe consequences. A tragic example saw 460 scholars who resisted the order buried alive, a grim reminder of the emperor's iron-fisted stance on unity and control. Though his methods were often brutal, Qin Shi Huang played an essential role in shaping China's early foundation. Without the uncompromising rule of China's first emperor, the unified nation we know today may never have come into existence. Qin Shi Huang's fierce determination, practical ruthlessness, and unwavering vision for a united China laid the groundwork for a powerful nation with a legacy that has outlasted dynasties, political upheavals, and vast social change. His model of centralized authority became a guiding principle for every successive Chinese government, from imperial rule through Republican, Maoist, and modern post-Maoist periods. It was this central authority that became the force capable of unifying China's diverse lands and people into a single entity, transforming the region into a cohesive nation. Despite the swift fall of his dynasty just 4 years after his death, the impact of Qin Shi Huang's vision endured for over 2 millennia, symbolized in the very name of the nation today. His contributions forged a template of unity and governance that persists, underpinning a Chinese state that stands as a testament to his lasting legacy.